What is up, my Lorcana Goons, and welcome back to our Monday Meta Watch series. Every Monday, Zach and I join up together to go over the weekend tournament results. We're going to feature some deck lists, talk about some meta trends, and at the end of this video, we're going to mulligan with one of these decks and kind of go over our strategies behind what you want to do going first and going second. Zach, we are in, week 2 of the Reign of Jafar season, and we're seeing a very wide meta, a variety of color combinations being used in some big tournaments. We have 100 player plus tournaments, 50 plus player tournaments, and a bunch of different decks. How are we feeling today?
Overall, I'm feeling very well, Kevin. Thank you so much for asking. But yeah, this weekend was awesome. We are seeing more development with the Reign of Jafar set. More people are adding these newer cards to their decks, and we got some interesting ones to talk about. But yes, up on the screen right here, we have Wonderful. Shoutouts to you. He's a Discord member, a longtime Goon enthusiast, and overall a Mufasa enjoyer. He's been playing Mufasa since set 2. The iterations that this deck gets to kind of go through every set is cool because there's always like one or two pieces Mufasa gets to add to its card pool. So yeah, I like what you did here with this list. Kevin, do you want to go over some of the choices that they made today?
We've always seen this kind of prioritizing character strategy when you're playing this deck, and it's looking like we have mostly characters except for these two non-character cards. We have Invited to the Ball, which is an action that costs 2. It's uninkable. You can pay 2 ink to reveal 2 cards of the top of your deck to yourself, and you can pick a character from there, show it to the opponent, and the rest go to the bottom of the deck if I'm not mistaken. And this is a great way to be able to search for your cards. You also have Teeth and Ambitions, which can deal 2 damage to an opposing character while also dealing 2 damage to your character, and this is super relevant in the deck that kind of has a very strong Rapunzel line, because most of the time that's going to be like your biggest draw package outside of stuff like Stitch, Carefree Surfer, or maybe combining the Teeth and Ambitions with Goofy the Groundbreaking Chef is what you want to do, because you're able to re-ready your characters at the end of your turn, making it so that your opponent cannot challenge characters like Mufasa, Lady Tremaine, some heavy 2 lore questers in the deck. And lastly, you can finish that off with Wreck-It Ralph. I really like Wreck-It Ralph in this deck. I also like cards like Hades in this deck because Rapunzel is so important, and both these cards will let you grab Rapunzel back from the discard pile. Wreck-It Ralph, though, will let you burst some extra lore when you do that, which can be pretty important. Wonderful had some games on stream, and I feel like the matchup spread with this deck was just pretty good overall. You have a lot of these Amber characters that have 4 willpower, or even Amber characters that can heal your characters to give them 4 willpower, like Mother Gothel with Snow White.
Yeah, I do want to mention now how the Raya interacts with that Gaston. It allows you to play these heavy characters for a reduced cost by re-readying the Gaston, and overall, it's a good way to cheat out that Surfer Stitch and draw 2 extra cards early on.
Wonderful being in our Discord. Let us know some opinions on the deck. He said, going into a steel heavy meta, I did not change too much, but I wanted to prioritize draw and some tankier bodies. That's why we have those big bodies there. We win a lot of matchups by outdrawing our opponent and continuously playing threats on the board and having an abundant removal to boot. It is a very honest list. Teeth and Ambitions was huge to pick off Diablos and allow for heal. I really like that. I like that Teeth and Ambitions can, pop Diablos, because sometimes you just lose out to not having a Diablo out. I'm happy to answer any other questions in the Discord if you guys want to go ahead and ask some questions. He said he would make the following changes, though. -2 Raya, -1 Prince Eric, +2 Maui Shark, and +1 regular Maui Hero to All. So looking like you want to have some bigger bodies like a Maui Hero to All and 2 Sharks in the deck. Honestly, he says you can just play the original list and it would be great because Prince Eric is the GOAT. So he still likes Prince Eric, just maybe might want to play some more inkables and non-inkables. Surprisingly, Raya did not contribute much, but is usually a great addition. Neither did Goofy, but might have just been weird with the games that he had. They have valuable ink. They're valuable for ink when you need it, is what he says. MVPs of the day are as follows: Rapunzel, Pongo, Invited to the Ball, Maui, and Maleficent Dragon. Thanks once again to Wonderful for being a member of our Discord community and dropping the extra insight for the Red Yellow Mufasa deck. And in first place of this tournament, we have Kurt Spies, who is a very well-known player in the Lorcana community, playing an Amber Steel Rhino Shift song list, but we're not playing Whole New World. We're not really playing singers, so it's more of like a Diggy Diggy Hole list, right, Zach?
This is what looks like Diggy Diggy Hole. That is with the Happy Seven Dwarves Mine combo, where you're able to remove some extra characters, get some extra lore gain, but we have the Rapunzel's Tower as the other location. That's like the Kurt Spies spice, if you ask me, because I've seen it in a lot of his Amber Steel lists. But look at the amount of 1-drops that we have: 4 Cindy, 4 Rhino, 3 Happy, 3 Daisy. Two Calhouns also. You're starting out strong with this deck. And don't forget that Lady Family Dog can help play those additional 2-cost characters for free. Maybe the last card you have in your hand is a dock and you're just drawing 2 cards after that. And that's very strong. But I love to see Amber Steel do well. And shout out to Kurt Spies. He will be playing in the World Championships later this month. So make sure you get to watch him masterfully execute this deck.
Really cool to see, man. This is the Worlds format that we're in. These are some of the decks that we're probably going to see being used in the World Tournament post the draft rounds. So Amber Steel seems to be making just big waves in this current meta. I feel like the Shift Rhino package is so important. And at first, I thought we were only going to see it in the Amber Steel Song decks, you know, the list that play Ariel, Whole New World, stuff like that. But now we're starting to see people like Kurt Spice take advantage of it in these more aggro lists. And I really like this, man. Lady, the Family Dog with a Doc as a combo. You can empty out your hand a little bit quicker, maybe play some characters like Piglet, Mr. Smee, etc. And then your Doc just gets value even quicker. Pete's kind of a mean card in this deck too, because once you go super wide, you just drop the Pete's and your opponent cannot play. Be prepared. And if your opponent's trying to get to a Shift Sisu line, you know, you have the songs Strength of a Raging Fire, Storm Rage On, even Dwarves Mine to deal damage to the opposing characters. Amber Steel, here to stay, man. If you're not building your deck to combat the Shift Rhino package, what are you doing?
And here we have another top 8 list from the same 10Ks tournament. This is Ruby Amethyst. And boy, oh boy, this has got some spice in it for this one. The Ursula 2-drop. That is the Ursula. That is the 2-cost 1/3 with Challenger 2. That is a for sure spicy card to see right now. It almost kind of suits like the Queen of Hearts is trying to do. That's the 2-cost 1/4 that gains 3 strength while it has damage on it. The new meta Medusa from Reina Jafar is what's going to enable these cards to get a lot of utility because they are bodies with high enough willpower that will be removed when they have damage on themselves, and they can be used to help trade more into the board. And you have that Shift Ursula, the Sea Witch Queen, as another way to lock out those Amber Steel decks. I know that when Ruby Amethyst is in its prime, Amber Steel tends to be more favored into that matchup, so it's good that they have some more tools to help check it. And overall, it's a nice list with some of the new cards that I like to see. Kevin, what you are a Ruby Am enjoyer yourself. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I actually just love this list. This is probably the list that I'm gonna try out at my local league this weekend this week if I get to go. I think Mana Medusa, the Shift Dual Ink Mana Medusa, is so strong. Being able to bounce back certain 1-2 cost characters that just are heavy questers against these Amber Steel matchups is so important. You know, you can bounce back a Daisy, you slow the game down so much by doing something like that, bouncing back Samis, Calhouns. I really do like Ursula the Mad Sea Witch. Like I was just saying, Rhino is such a big part of this current meta, and you don't have many ways to out Rhino in Amethyst right now. One of the best ways to do it, though, is going to be using Crab with your Chernobog followers. So very important that you're prioritizing playing 4 Chernobog followers in your Amethyst decks right now, because you need to be able to use Crab to pump up that character by at least 3 to deal 5 damage to that Rhino. That Rhino has resist +2, so you need to swing for 5. Fox is not enough, right? So for a while, I was toying around with cards like Rafiki, the 1-cost character, you know, because he can swing for 3, and with that Crab means he can swing for 6. That can also out the Rhino, but Ursula is just a much better card for this type of thing because it has that 3 willpower body. It's going to be able to survive cards like the Storm Rage On. You can deal 2 damage to it with your Madame Medusa, and you can still have that ability to use Crab and swing for 6 basically and clear a Rhino. Queen of Hearts as well. Queen of Hearts will kind of sit on the board in that matchup until you can pump it up with your Medusa and then follow that up with a Crab, you know, to swing into the Rhino. So that's really cool. There's a lot of cool utility in this deck, and yeah, man, that Shift Ursula, you can just stop the opposing Amber Steel deck from singing any songs. You know, maybe they thought they were going to be on the horizon. You shift that Ursula, and that card is no longer going to be playable in their hand, right? Because there's no way they're getting to 7 ink. But you get to 7 ink pretty consistently in this deck, and you have the new Hades, the Ruthless Tyrant, to draw some extra cards. We're not playing rabbits in this deck. We're not playing goats, so your draw power feels like it's very limited to Friends on the other side, Genie, that Hades, but we're also playing Finders Keepers, right? So if you like drawing cards, this deck might be the deck for you. Huge shout out to David Gardner for getting top cut at this tournament. This was the Ink Invitational. It had around 120 players, and it was a lot of the top players in the area. So huge shout out to these tournament organizers for throwing these tournaments, right? And another big tournament happening this weekend in our local area of Southern California, the Reina Jafar Quad Case Tournament. We have a 3rd place list from James Cotto, Emerald Amethyst. Love to see it. Dude, there's a lot of draw power in these decks, and even this deck is playing the Ursula Sea Witch Queen. So any of you guys won that set championship promo, you might want to start throwing it into your Amethyst deck list. This deck also has a very good Ursula Shift target because you have Ursula Deceiver, the 2-cost character that can snipe songs out of the opponent's hand, which is very, very powerful right now, I feel like, in this Amber Steel meta, right? We're seeing some Flynn Rider situations going on here with Curse Merfolks. No Prince John, not much of a discard engine going on there. Just these 2 cards with We Don't Talk About Bruno. Feels like we're questing for game very early with this list, right? We got the goats. We have the Fox to bounce back our goats. We have genies that'll quest for 2. Zach, how are you liking this list by James Cato over here?
This is interesting because I'm looking at this list and I don't see any new cards. Is that right? I don't see a Reign of Jafar card in this list, so that's
You're
awesome.
right. You're
Looks like
right.
you do not need Reign of Jafar cards to play in this meta. And James is from our locals, so yeah, shout outs to you, James, for taking down this tournament. I know there's a lot of pro players at that event. Those some of our closer friends and closer Goon Squad supporters that were over there. So it was really nice to see you take it down. And yeah, honestly, I gotta say, I love that you play Flynn Rider from set 1. It's good to see that this card makes its way back in the meta. I don't know if you guys knew this, but that card was a $3 to $4 uncommon when it was only first chapter day. So yeah, it's a little history lesson for you folks.
Those were the days, right? Those were the days. I do want to talk about this improvise being played at 4 copies here. Very, very, very interesting. I can't help but ask like why, but now that I think about it, Fox cannot clear Rhino, like I was just saying. So maybe you need that extra improvise card in your hand to use on turn 4 to pump up your Fox and clear that Rhino shift. But it's also a card that can banish illusion characters. Illusions are pretty popular still. People are playing the Iago Spectral Parrot, and that's like a huge one that I see. Every now and then I run into Amethyst Steel, and they're playing Giant Cobra. There's a little bit more illusion support, so there are those outlier decks that are trying to make those illusion decks happen. But looking like James over here just ready for anything using 4 copies of Improvise. Is there anything I'm missing, Zach? Like, why else you run that card in this deck?
Well, you did forget to mention one important factor. That's an action. And what do you play in this list? Shift Diablo. And you need to discard an action to shift with Diablo. So I do get to
Yes,
actually interact
yes.
with James quite often. So we've talked about some of the cards in his list, and I do think you do want to have because that shift line is very important. You do want to be able to sync friends on the other side as early as turn 2, and that's another way to get that job done. But yeah, having more cycle isn't that bad. The additional strength on your characters could help you trade up, like you did mention that Rhino, but overall, it's just an Amethyst Emerald tempo list that we're love seeing, and it has a little bit more of an aggressive package to help close out some of those games against the red blue control decks.
And also top 8 of this tournament, a friend of ours, shout out Michael Mustagio for getting a top cut spot with Ruby Sapphire items, a deck titled No New Cards, which is, as you can see here, playing not a single new card from Reign of Jafar. That's 2 decks, Zach. That's 2 different decks already in this top cut that aren't playing a single new card from the new set. We know Mike is known for playing Ruby Sapphire in our area. He is a Ruby Sapphire enjoyer, 4 Shark, 4 Tamatoa, happy as a clam, 4 Pirate's Life to make sure you can't get to 20 before he does. And we also have 2 copies of Hades here and 2 copies of Super Goof. Very cool. Mike has been on a rampage lately, man. Like I've been seeing him top a lot of tournaments lately.
Mike doesn't get to show up to locals often, but when he does participate and play, he crushes it. Once again, shout outs to you, Mike. You took it down, and I love seeing that you just have no new cards and you played with no new cards and you did well with it. So yeah, that's a little bit more of the lore into that story. There was no new cards that he could obtain. However, he didn't need it. You don't need them. What are you doing with the new cards when you don't need them and you can win anyway?
And in top 4, and a member of Team Goons, a Goon Squad member over here, Chris Martinez, aka my cousin, playing his deck titled Secret Goo, Amber Steel, Rhino Shift Package. Not much of a secret nowadays. Feels like everybody's on this Rhino Shift Package, buddy. But congrats to Chris Martinez over here getting top 4 representing the Goon Squad with Amber Steel Song. This is definitely one of his decks of choice. I really like the addition of Aerial Sonic Warrior in the deck. It's not something new that people have been playing this card in their deck, but I do think in this very popular Steel meta, it's a very strong card to be able to shift on your Aerial, possibly have enough ink to pay 2 more and deal 3 damage to a character while you combine it with cards like Zeus, Strength of a Raging Fire, or even Grab Your Swords. Love to see Grab Your Swords in this deck, only played as a 1 of. And yeah, man, you can play this card out with Prince Naveen, you can play it out with the Aerial Shift or any of your Singer 5 characters.
There is a lot of good cards that Amber Steel has access to, but they don't seem to stray too far away from the main core singer package and those powerful songs. So it's always nice to see Amber Steel doing well. Again, my bread and butter. And again, shout outs to you, Chris. It's awesome to see you crush it whenever you decide to show up to an event too. So yeah, guys, these were some deck lists from the Raid and Jafar Quad Case Tournament. That was also a qualifier for I think 1 or 2 round buys at the Pro Play Game Summit in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, and that's going to be in 4th of July weekend. So yes, shout outs to you, Top Choice Gaming, for hosting this incredible tournament. You guys do a lot to provide our community with amazing tournaments, and shout outs to Phil because I know you judged it.
Next up, we have Emerald Steel, a top 8 list by Jar P4 from the Through the Decade Sports and Cards tournament. Very awesome to see a 5K tournament, Emerald Steel securing a top 8 place here. This is the first Emerald Steel list we go over of the channel, but Emerald Steel's been, securing top cut places in all these tournaments we've seen so far. This tournament was a 100 plus player tournament as well. Very huge, very awesome to see Emerald Steel consistently getting these top cut spots in there. I know the deck builders, the deck pilots are the ones that are getting themselves there. Some cards to know, 2 copies of Hidden Cove. I'm kind of used to seeing no copies nowadays or even just 1. But I think this card's very, very strong, especially against like the Amber Steel matchup, giving that extra willpower to a Diablo, maybe something like Morph to make sure it doesn't lose out to these Tinkerbell cards, stuff like that. Very important. 3 Prince John, which I think is just the best card in the game right now. This card is just so impactful when it hits the board, right? This with Muses means you can sing Beyond the Horizon on curve. I also really like the addition of Chip in this deck, man. Like, this is not the first time we've seen it. We saw this last week as well, and it's looking like Prince John just has a very clean curve to either play on turn 3, or you can set up lines like Ursula turn 3, Prince John on 4, sing Sudden Chill twice. That's always a killer combo, right?
This is a very, very important thing to mention, guys. Green Steel is more of a slower pace deck. We don't see the amount of 1 drops like other lists that we were showing you before. So there's only Diablo, and then it kind of goes into its 2s and 3s more heavily. So the mid to late game, it's tend to be more favored. A lot of the weaknesses that this deck has is more of the aggro strategies, believe it or not. Even though there's a lot of anti-aggro tools, you have to be able to find them to be able to stop that offense. So overall, if this deck gets to play and do what it wants to do, it's no stopping it. But there are some ways to counter it. And another deck list that took 3rd from the same tournament, we have Blurple by a Whelp. And overall, there's some different choices in this list than I've seen no other Blurple players currently play yet. So we have the Kita and the Ana. This Ana is from Raiden Jafar, and this Kita is from Arceus Island. If you guys don't remember the Kita, that's the one that allows you to look at your top 2 and put one in the inkwell and keep the other one on top. And the Ana, a Floodborn character that reads, when it quests, if you have a character named Elsa in play, you may draw a card. So the Elsas you play are the 5th Spirit and no other Elsas. It seems to be more of like a body that this deck wants to kind of play on turn 6. You have a lot of curve from turns 1, 2, and 3 and 4, but you get to skip that ink with the Tipo and Sail ramp, and you're just going into bigger, heavier tempoed bodies, and the Monstro is there to help check any aggression. You're getting extra cards from the friends on the other side and the Finders Keepers, so you're more than willing to discard a few cards to get some more bodies removed with the Monstro. And to top it all off, we have 1 copy of the Ratigan, this legendary that has Ward and 4 lore, so it could just be a closer. I more people I talk to don't have the strongest opinions on this card. I would like to see this card be played with like something like Greatstone Dragon, which isn't in this list. But Kevin, what do you think? That Kita is actually a way to get cards in your inkwell, right?
I was just about to say that, actually. I was just about to say I think Ratigan's very good in decks where you can use cards to add to your inkwell without necessarily inking cards from your hand, because you just mentioned it's more of a closer, it's more of a late game card, and sometimes in the late game when you're playing decks like this, you start to run out of resources, but really you just want to get this Ratigan to quest like once or twice. If you can get 8 lore off this Ratigan while getting, a couple lore off the Genie in the early game, maybe these Bells and these Anas, they're 2 lore questers, so they're very important, I think, to getting to that like 10 to 15 lore. Once this Ratigan hits the board, if it does hit the board, you only need to hit with it once or twice to kind of finish the game off. And being able to have a Kita to make sure that Ratigan survives, I think is kind of cool. I like this card in decks that can do that. I know the Puppy deck can do that too. There's a lot of cards in that deck that can ramp without using your hand, so I like Ratigan in those decks, man. Yeah, Burple has set itself up to be a very strong contender, and I feel like this is how I pictured the Popsicle Tamatoa Bell package to be truly utilized. I'm kind of glad for Sphere got banned because like it added to like, oh, you have to play that in that Sapphire Steel deck. But I think that this is a more than reasonable package to play in almost any Sapphire deck. It just adds so much consistency to be able to play Popsicle on turn one. Suddenly you have a character that you can contest the early game board with, and then look at this deck. It plays no one cost cards except for Popsicle, and the only two cost cards are Tipo Sale. Everything else is three cost and above, so it just lets you play so many bombs, right? And your early game is really dictated by whether or not you can see that bell against these aggro decks. But if you're not playing against a super aggressive deck, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter at that point, you know. So I really like being able to use this package this way. It's very fair, but I also think it adds like just so much consistency to some decks like Blurple. And here we have another Ruby Sapphire deck, a third place list from Jose Angelo Mateo. This is another red blue deck playing no new cards from the 4K Enchanted Showdown tournament by Franza Gaming and Lucky Dimers over here. This was a 95 player tournament, and once again, a deck not playing any cards from Reign of Jafar. But every time I see stuff like this, guys, I just feel like, oh, rotation's gonna completely spice up the metagame, right?
1000%. I think it kind of also goes to show that red blue has been given a lot of tools necessary to kind of already have the best concoction of a deck, and anything else is going to just kind of like water it down, in my opinion. It has a lot of the core cards that you still see here, like your ramp tools and your ways to accelerate the game. But this is a different list than like the DKP style list because there's no Maui Shark, there's no Pirate's Life, and it has a lot more items and is utilizing that Scrooge McDuck, the resourceful miser. So yes, this is still a very strong deck, and if you aren't prepared for red blue, it is going to take over the meta. Make sure you guys actually have some early aggression on, because that's this deck's weakness. It does play more removal because it needs to survive to the late game, but if you can close it out early enough, this deck will have a hard time thriving.
Isn't it funny how Ruby Sapphire used to be one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive deck of the format, and right now it's like kind of dwindled in price. It's almost, I want to say it's somewhere around like what, $200 now as opposed to what it used to be. The Sisus are down. The Maui half sharks aren't even being used in some of these builds anymore. Scrooge and Tamatoas are down in price. So it's looking like this is kind of more of a budget deck, right? But I like to see it. This Ruby Sapphire item strategy is actually really good against I think the current meta. Being able to utilize Lucky Dime, I still think is very strong right now. Nobody's playing item removal. Emerald Steel and Amber Steel are just kind of running rampant, and I feel like if you can play a deck that can utilize cards like Sisu, Be Prepared, you know, you can kind of keep those decks at bay and get to 20 before they can. So good to see Ruby Sapphire still doing Ruby Sapphire things in this ever-changing meta. And then top 8, another Sapphire deck, but this is different. This is something we haven't seen in a while in the top cut deck list. We have a Clara and Bell top 8 Sapphire Emerald deck list by Edward Vais Vivas over here. Shout out you for making it to the top cut with a color combination that we do not see very often in the metagame or on this channel. Here we have a Clarabelle deck that also plays the Bell Apprentice Inventor with Popsicle. I'm surprised it's not playing the Tamatoa, but we have a lot of actions here in this deck. We got Sail the Azurite Sea, You're Welcome, How Far I'll Go, Mother Knows Best, Strike a Good Match, Heffalumps and Woozles, and Under the Sea. Those are all songs except for Sail, by the way, because you're playing Muses. You're playing Muses, and no Sapphire Coil, though, so there's no way to kind of combo that off. It doesn't seem necessary. Bend to My Will, though, is like one of the craziest cards you could play in this deck. Being able to ramp into this Clarabelle, light on her hooves, draw some cards, match your opponent's hand size, and then hit them with a Bend to My Will, feels like the game is over from that point on, right?
It's definitely a nasty combo that I like myself. I do mess around with this color combination every once in a while, but I do want to point out that there's one Reign of Jafar card in this deck. It's the Basil. And it's maybe not necessary. If you yourself, Edward, are watching this video, go ahead and drop in the comments down below why you chose to play the Basil. But I love that you included the Pete Bad Guy from set 2. That's a very good card in my opinion. Just doesn't see a lot of play because there's not too many good actions except Sapphire and Emerald. They have a lot of cheap actions that have some interesting or more or less utility-based purposes, but overall, warded characters are very good into this meta.
Amethyst Steel making its way into the top 8 of this tournament as well by Tony Ruiz Artero over here. Amethyst Steel, very strong deck. We have 4 copies of Pete, which is probably one of the best cards in the game, alongside a lot of Lore Burst, 4 copies of Go, 4 copies of Goat, 3 copies of Genie Wish Fulfilled, which will quest for 2, 2 White Rose, 2 Rabbit, and look at this, Zach, we have 2 copies of the Pinocchio Legendary from Reign of Jafar, Strings Attached. This character is an evasive character, 0 strength but has 4 willpower, and once during your turn, whenever this character readies, you may draw a card. So it's kind of like a sad beast. It's kind of like Beast Tragic Hero. That's kind of how I look at this card. Beast Tragic Hero is a card that lets you draw twice for your draw step. Pinocchio is a card that'll let you draw when you ready at the ready step of your beginning of your turn. So, if this card survives, even if it has damage on it, if it survives any damage, every time you start your turn, you're going to draw some cards. How do you feel about Amethyst Steel going into this meta? I feel like sometimes it has a really bad Amber Steel matchup, and I feel like I would really like to see more outs to Rhino in this deck, but, maybe I could be wrong.
I will say Amethyst Steel doesn't have the most unfavorable Amber Steel matchup. It definitely can go back and forth. Again, you mentioned cards like Pete, which is a very important card into that matchup, but Calhoun's hard to remove and it has a nice body attached to it, so it's always going to trade into your characters. So I tend to not always feel the most comfortable when I'm playing against this deck. However, I do know that I'm kind of dictating the matchup since I have more of the singers and I'm able to kind of put out more tempo a little bit faster. Although that this deck having the bounce package can take back tempo almost at any time at once, so you have to be careful. Overall, I do want to just go over that Pinocchio, although it does have the ability to draw an additional, it's only when it readies. But that doesn't mean at the start of your turn. If you have other ways to ready characters, not in this color combo, but with other pairs, then you are able to get more additional cards, and that could provide some additional value. But I love seeing Fire the Cannons in this list. Again, it's one of your few ways to take back the tempo against those Amber Steel decks, and it's an excellent answer to Cinderella.
Yeah, Fire the Cannons is really good against Amber Steel decks. I do want to mention, Zach, the Pinocchio is only once per turn. So, if it's at the start of your turn, if it readies, you can't like quest with it, re-ready it, and draw again. But if you play it the turn, the first turn and exert it somehow, and then re-ready it somehow, then you can't do that. But if there's an effect that'll get it to do that, that's a way you can abuse it, I guess. But yeah, Amethyst Steel, very strong. Let us know what you guys feel about this legendary Pinocchio in the Reign of Jafar. And again, once again, not too many cards being used in this deck from Reign of Jafar. Next up, we have a first place list from a Winnabox tournament. This is by Rod Gaston, aka Impact TCG, playing Sapphire Steel. Sapphire Steel is a deck that I feel like a lot of people gave up on, after the ban list. I think a lot of people were kind of worried that this deck wasn't going to be meta relevant or competitive anymore. And I've kind of been seeing a lot of Sapphire Steel enthusiasts take this more toolbox kind of route with the deck as of lately. If you're not playing the Kiwi aggro strategy, you're probably playing something that uses Whole New World. This list in particular is playing the Namari single-minded rival, which actually he mentioned he would probably just take out of the deck, right? So I went ahead and asked Gaston on Twitter what he felt about the deck and if there's any changes he would make, and he said he would just drop Namari in this type of list and replace it with another Robin Hood, Beast, or Ratigan. See, Ratigan once again being kind of important. This list is almost identical to the first place list he used to win his set championships last season. Very cool. All he really needed to add was 2 of the Ratigan. I guess it seems, I think the Ratigan is pretty decent, especially if you're playing a card like Lucky Dime, which he's not using, but I feel like Lucky Dime and this Ratigan go hand in hand in Sapphire Steel. We got cards like the Pleakley here that are going to help you ramp. You maybe because you're playing cards like Simba the Future King on turn 1 to filter out your hand and look for certain cards you may need. This Pleakley is going to be a pretty good combo on turn 3 to let you ramp alongside this Mickey Mouse Detective on turn 3, which will get you to your 5-cost characters like Cogsworth, Beast Tragic Hero, or Namari. Zach, how are you feeling about Sapphire Steel in this meta, especially against the Amber Steel popularity?
I don't know how I honestly feel about Sapphire Steel in the meta. I can tell you though, I don't feel good about one Tipo in a deck that should be wanting to ramp on turn 2. That's kind of crazy. And is there no sale to the Azurite Sea? This is a very interesting way to build Sapphire Steel if I'm really honest right now, Kevin, cuz yeah, I can agree that's like the second time we've heard people say that the one copy of the Namari should have just been cut for something else, but this is like one of the first times I've seen something like this. I think a style of Sapphire Steel got popularized by Jonathan Lamb, if I remember correctly. So I think that's who started the Mickey trend again. But overall, I think it has a good amount of mid-range bodies. Again, you're looking at Hades, you're looking at Tinkerbell, and you're even looking at the Robin Hood from set one. That's a character that will gain evasive during your turn to help challenge those opposing genies. But I'm shocked to see that there's no like Helga Sinclair or anything else like that too. So I'm not the biggest fan of this list. However, I'm a bigger fan of the man that piloted this deck themselves. So shout outs to you, Rod. I can't wait till another DLC happens and we get to hang out again.
Yeah, I do want to mention. I think you're not prioritizing Tipo or Sale because your ramp is your 3 cost, right? You're going 4 Mickey, 3 Pleakley. You're just trying to get to that 5 ink, and there's no 4 cost characters, Zach. That's a big thing too. There's no 4 cost cards actually. There's no how far will go either. No Hifig, as I like to call it. Oh, the only 4 cost we're playing is McDuck Manor, which is actually just really strong against Amber Steel. So like that's what I like. I like to see some good counters to the Rhino meta. But once again, huge shout out Impact TCG, aka Radgaston, a true Lorcana Goon, getting first place at this box tournament.
And last, but certainly not least, Amber Steel songs. Now, this is a list by McPhilly, again, a member of our Discord community server. So if you guys are not involved, join down with the link below to get involved in the Discord. Again, we go over some of the deck lists you guys talk about and share in that server. And this is one that they shared, taking down a 7-round tournament where they won their first 5 and then split the last 2. So they got to intentionally draw their way into Top Cut, which again, they all decided to split the prizing. Not too many details on the exact tournament itself. However, this list does include the Mari single-minded rival as well as the Robin Hood shift package. So there's a lot more mid-range card choices in this list. And I like that they chose to put the promo art of the whole new world on there. It's very classic. But Kevin, do you have any opinions on 3 Grab Your Sword maybe? Because that's the only thing that stands out outside of that.
Grab your sword very strong, I think, in this meta, especially against the Diablos, the Prince Johns, even some of the Ruby Amethyst decks kind of suffer from like this ability to do some spread damage without them really playing around it because nobody really respects Grab Your Swords right now. I think that's why it's a good card, right? When people start realizing, oh, Grab Your Swords is a card in the meta again, then you kind of start respecting it. But they're not playing the Rhino Shift package. This is the first Amber Steel deck we've seen in a minute that does not play the Rhino Shift package, and McPhilly actually went ahead and kind of gave us some more feedback in the Discord, mentioning the only changes that they may make was to take out 1 Greatest Criminal Mind and add 1 Namari. Apparently, Namari is a lot more impactful for him as opposed to maybe some of these other decks, right? They ran World's Greatest Criminal Mind for Monstro and Maui Sharks, but they were almost always holding Strength and Zeus by the time those matchups, by the time those characters hit the board in those matchups, which is really interesting, right? You got to have the right cards at the right time, but still having some cards like Criminal Mind as an extra backup plan might be pretty good. So he was able to just ink it when he needed it. But at the same time, 20 songs meant that Ariel only missed once all day long, which is very reassuring. I'm someone who doesn't like playing Amber Steel because I don't like when Ariel whiffs. But huge shout out to Mick Philly for playing songs and getting top 8 at his tournament. Once again, splitting top cut. And thanks for being a member of our Discord, dude. We really appreciate you being an active member. And like we said, guys, if you guys want to be featured on our Meta Watch Mondays videos, be sure to join our Discord link below. Whenever you guys do out a tournament, drop that tournament and give us some feedback down below so we can talk about it on our channel. But now Zach and I are going to go ahead and mulligan with one of these decks and kind of talk about strategy. So be sure to stick around for that. All right, welcome back to our Mulligan Mondays segment of our Meta Watch Mondays video. We're going to go over some Mulligan strategies with the 3rd place list here by James Cotto. This was a Emerald Amethyst list that was used at the Top Choice Gaming Tournament, 55 plus players. And we're going to go ahead and start off with this 7-card hand here. We have a song consisting of friends on the other side, followed by characters like Ursula, Diablo Devoted Herald, Ursula Shift, the Sea Witch Queen, a Diablo Maleficent Spy, which we can combo with our Diablo here, Merlin Goat, and Elsa Fitz Spirit. Now, Zach Stone, let's just assume we're going first. We're going blind, and that information is very important. Going blind in the matchup, I'm going to go ahead and keep my Diablo Shift package here. I think that's very important, especially if I'm going first. That means in a Emerald Mirror match, they can't snipe this song out of my hand because by the time their Ursula can come down, I'm going to be able to shift this Diablo, right? But in case I am playing an Emerald Mirror match, I might want to keep this Ursula. I think this card is very good against Amber Steel as well. And it was, as we've been seeing, Amber Steel is just super popular in a lot of these tournaments.
Yeah, so I personally think that we are always keeping the Diablo Shift line with the action, of course. The Ursula I do want to keep as a 2-drop. However, because of the way that this deck is built, there's not too many actions, and I personally want to sing that friend. So it's a choice, right? I can decide to keep Ursula if I have more confidence or more knowledge of the matchup. But if I really have no knowledge of this matchup, Ursula could just be a dead card. You are getting to see the hand with Diablo 1 drop, so you can make a different inking decision on your next turn and maybe ink the Ursula if you know it's not going to get any value. But if you are playing against a steel deck, you are going to want to rip those powerful removal songs from their hand. So it's a tough choice because I want to sing the friends too. So I really want to find another action to discard instead of that. But I think I like the fact that if I have Ursula and I get to see the hand a turn before, I can just ink her and not have to play her. So I want to keep her. But the cards you have highlighted are the same ones I would put back.
All right, let's go ahead and put back those cards and see what it gives us. We'll keep the Ursula for now. There's 12 actions total in this deck, and I figure there's a chance we'll get one, but let's see what happens. We did find another action, Zackstone, so we can sing this Diablo on turn 2. It's exactly what we planned. Turn 1, we'll ink our Merlin and play Diablo Maleficent Spy. This will give us a lot of information. We'll know what our opponent's playing. We'll know whether or not we need to keep this Ursula Deceiver. We do have an uninkable in our hand, which means that if we draw another uninkable for the next turn, we're going to have to ink this Ursula Deceiver, but we can go... Actually, we don't have to yet, because you can just start by shifting your turn. You can start your turn off by shifting the Diablo, pitching the We Don't Talk About Bruno, singing Friends on the other side. You draw 2 cards. There's no way you don't draw inkable there, and then you can ink play the Ursula if you are in that Amber Steel matchup. Zach Stone, I like this. I like this a lot.
Yeah, that's I would assume that's what I would want to do with this deck. I'm assuming James would do the same thing. So if you are watching this video, go ahead and drop down below some different decisions, or any other viewer. We are looking at the comments when you guys are asking us those questions. So please let us know if you would do anything different on any of the mulligans. And a new hand we're going to be deciding to mulligan with again. With no information, going first, we are looking at a hand of 2 Cursed Merfolks, Merlin Crab, Diablo Devoted Herald, Genie Wisherfield, and a Friends on the other side with an Improvise. So we have the actions, we have the 3 cost Diablo, but no 1 cost Diablo. However, we are playing 8 copies of them. So we have a little bit more of a chance to find it. I feel a little bit better trying to hardline for that route because you do have more 1 cost copies to find, and you are going to be keeping one of these Cursed Merfolks, I believe. So it might make sense to throw back a Cursed Merfolk, a Genie, and a Merlin Crab when you're on the play. If you were on the draw, however, I would probably want to keep this Crab. Maybe even decide to throw back the Diablo package because it's not the most effective when you're going second. But for sure, if I'm going first and I don't have any knowledge, I think I'm going to keep this exactly what you have highlighted is what I'm putting back. So we're keeping Merfolk, we're keeping Improvise, we're keeping Friends, and we're keeping Diablo. But Kevin, do you have any other suggestions or any other thoughts about what different decisions we can make?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think if you're going second, Crab is just that card you want to keep. Diablo Shift is kind of weird going second in a deck like this because you don't really have songs to sing like Storm Rage On or Strength of a Raging Fire to kind of gain that tempo back. You can use Improvise after, but it's not really the same impact. But yeah, I do like if you're going first blind, putting these cards back just because you really want to see that one cost Diablo Shift line. I've seen people like Speci actually play 2 copies of the other Amethyst Diablo. The one from, I think it's from set 2 or set 3. It's not my favorite. It's a 2 strength character, but the point is so that you can pump it up with Crab and clear a Rhino. You know what I've noticed is that a lot of Emerald Amethyst is using the wrong lever, pull the lever combo. This deck is not, so you kind of are limited on your actions. So you definitely want to keep the actions when you see them if you want to pull off this Diablo combo. Part of me wants to put this Merfolk back and just be like, you know what? Like, if we're gonna keep these 2 actions for this combo, let's just go all in, man. Let's just dig for it, really, just because, you know, I feel like if we're not playing this, then most of these cards aren't going to have the same impact. But if we're going second, you definitely keep the Crab and the Merfolk there. What do you think? Do you put this Merfolk back or keep it?
So I think if you're going to put the second Merfolk back, I think you have room to even put back the Improvise because I was wanting to keep the second inkable card because we're keeping 2 uninkable cards. But if we're going to follow that path, why not even go further and try to put back another card to increase our chances?
Yeah, I like that. So I'm gonna do this. I really want to see this shift Diablo line if we're going first, and we're gonna put back 5 cards now to try and secure that. And we didn't see it, even with the 5 cards going back. We didn't see it. Maybe there's a world we put back the 6th card at Friends on the other side and tell ourselves we're gonna draw an action, and the Diablo anyways. But I still think it's fine. I still think we have some winnable gameplay here. Go turn two, Kit turn three to maybe gain some tempo back, and maybe we can use Kit to sing friends, find some other cards. It's a tough decision sometimes with this deck, and I feel like knowing the matchup is very, very important, especially if you know your local meta. You might know what decks players are playing. Sometimes that's how it goes there, local meta. You know, so and so's an Amber Steel player, so and so always playing Ruby Amethyst, so that's going to change your mulligan up a lot. But let's go ahead and pick start another one if we're, let's say, going second this time blind, right? All right, now here we have a new hand. Let's say we're going second and we don't know what we're playing against. We have a Diablo Maleficent Spy for our 1-cost character. Then we have a Merlin Go and a Genie Wish Fulfilled for 4-cost characters. Crab and Fox 3-cost, and 2 copies of We Don't Talk About Bruno. Now, I don't think Bruno is all that good to keep in our opening hand. Even though I have this 1-cost Diablo with an action, I feel like if we're really, really trying to dig for it, we're going to see both of them. We're going to see an action 9 times out of 10 when we mulligan. If we're going second, I really want to keep Crab and or Fox. I don't think we need to keep Genie or Goat if we're going second. There's just certain cards that I think might be a little bit stronger on curve, like Kit Cloud Kickers, maybe even Ursula Deceivers, because a 2-cost character would also be really good to follow up if we want to make sure our Crab and Madam Mim Fox resolve, especially against like Amber Steel decks, Amethyst Steel decks, Ruby Sapphire a little bit less, right? But like the decks that have like really high tempo in the early game, you're gonna want to play a 1-cost character and a 2-cost character back to back so that you can try and gain that tempo back with your Crabs and Foxes. And if your opponent plays around Crabs and Foxes, it's also okay because you can start setting up certain characters like Genie, Elsa, and just start kind of questing, forcing them to challenge your characters, and then you swing them back with the Fox. So I would keep I would put back 4. I would put back 4 because I think having both Crab and Fox are kind of important. What do you think?
Something that I do want to kind of mention is like, even though we're not playing a lot of draw power, we're still choosing to put back the Genie because when we're going second, we are getting an additional card to draw. So we're going to be able to see more cards and we still want to be able to be more reactive on the board. And you have to remember, guys, all the cards in your hand doesn't matter when the game and you need to be able to fight back. So yeah, it's important to keep something. Merlin Crab still a fine body to play on turn 3 just as a standalone character, helps things your friends on the other side. It's also nice too when you play Merlin Crab and against any other like Amber Steel deck, they just can't turn like characters like Mr. Smee sideways because you get the free trade into that 1-for-1, and then giving your challenger to another one of your bodies is a very good way of just removing the enemy's board. Overall, this is probably fine, but I think you even have room to debate keeping the Genie. Just if you know the matchup, if you know it's not more of an aggressive matchup, you don't keep it, but more of a slower matchup, you probably can keep.
Yeah, and I think against like a Diablo mirror matchup, like another Emerald deck that plays Shift Diablo, you could probably keep this Genie. You do have Gogo and Elsa as other ways to contest their Diablo, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I think going second with this type of deck, especially a deck that lacks removal, a lot of it is going to be about trying to apply pressure on the board and countering the pressure your opponent's adding in the early game against some of these like hamster Rhino decks or something like that. So let's go ahead and put these 4 cards back, Zach, and let's see what it gives us. And we have a Diablo, but no action. We found a Shift Diablo, but no action. No 2-cost character either, which kind of hurts us, and an abundance of 3-cost characters. We're going second, so we might have the draw, the draw to save us there. We have 2 draws actually, because turn 1 we're playing Diablo. We're gonna draw a card for the turn 1. Turn 2 we'll draw another card. So we have some potential there. We can either draw an action or we can draw a 2-cost character. But if we draw that, then I feel like we're chilling. We have the Kit Cloud Kicker, like I mentioned. That could be a very good card to gain back tempo. Let's say you are playing against Amber Steel. They play an Aerial, and you can respond with Kit Cloud Kicker. Now they can't sing 5-cost songs, which is very important. And you have another character that can be pumped up with Crab and or Madam and Fox. If you're playing against something like Ruby Sapphire, you're kind of in a weird position because you really want to see as many characters as possible, but you do have 3-cost characters immediately to start singing songs like Friends on the other side, right? And if let's say you're running into some of these more popular Emerald Steel decks, at least you have a Kit Cloud Kicker for their Diablo and some Crabs to contest some of their earlier characters. But I do think we want to see more actions in our hand here. Very tough. What do you think?
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to just play with the cards you have, right? But this is a very interesting hand because if you aren't playing more of an aggressive matchup, you're gonna feel fine knowing that you just have the cards you will need to win the game eventually, like Foxes, like Diablo, and like you did mention before, Kevin, the Amber Steel Song deck can't really handle those cards. Kit, Fox and Crab are like the scariest things that I want to see against. So genuinely, when you have a multitude of copies, you are going to feel pretty good into that matchup. But you might lose some steam without the card draw, I will admit. And for the last hand, we're going to be going over. This is a going second blind mulligan, and here we have two copies of the Devoted Herald Diablo, a genie, two copies of goats, a Gogo Tamago, and a Kit Cloud Kickums. We have no one drop characters, Kevin. Not a single one drop. I'm play 12. So what does that mean? We got to find our one drops. We should be looking to put back as many cards as possible. However, I think because of that, we might consider keeping the Go-Go. Now, I know James a little bit, from locals and stuff, and he likes playing Go-Go as like a tempo card. It's very good into certain decks that actually have no evasive removal. It's very strong into a lot of red blue decks, especially the builds with more items and less Maui Sharks, because they don't have real clean ways of getting rid of the Go-Go Tamago without wasting a removal card that they'd rather save for other threats. And it's still a very good card to play. It's just on curve with your tempo that you like to gain. And when you're on the draw, it's probably better to just play bodies instead of do nothing. So keeping the 2 cost card might make sense. But I see you clicked every other card besides the Go-Go, Kevin. What else are you looking to get?
I mean, personally, I feel like if I'm gonna go second and I don't have like information, and this is my opening hand, there's a lot of cards I don't want. I like to maybe I'd keep the Kit Cloud Kicker too if we're going second, but I really want to see a 1 cost character. And this Diablo Shift could be cool too to keep in hand, but this feels too greedy already. And you said it yourself earlier, Diablo Shift going second is not the best thing in a deck like this because really all you're gonna be able to do is sing friends on the other side early. The 2/2 body is not going to contest anything more than what a Go-Go could already contest, so I kind of don't want it right there. We don't know the matchup because there is a situation where our matchup is Ruby Amethyst, and this Shift Diablo could just let us run away with the entire game, right? And I think that's very important to note because if you do know the matchup, then it does change our mulligan a lot. There are situations where I think players have their mulligan and they're afraid to mulligan their entire hand away. And I want to say this now, and I want to say this in future videos. Like you shouldn't be afraid to mulligan like 5, 6, maybe even 7 cards. Even if you know the matchup, there's certain situations where you might be telling yourself, well, maybe I want to keep a Kit because I want to bounce back their Diablo, and maybe I want to keep a Genie because when they play a Genie, I want to have Genie plus Elsa, and maybe I want to keep a Diablo because I want to shift Diablo anyways, right? It sounds like a good play, but now look at this. We have way too many cards in our hand. We have lowered our chances exponentially to draw into a 1 cost character, which I think might be kind of important. Like you said, we want to get tempo with this deck no matter what. So I think if I were to if I was like in a tournament, I was blind, I would probably only keep Go-Go and Kit Cloud Kicker, hoping that I have Kit Cloud Kicker to use as a turn 3 play to get back some tempo. And I really want to dig for maybe a Cursed Merfolk, because Cursed Merfolk is an interesting card when you play on turn 1. It causes your opponent to start swinging and lose cards in the early game, cards that they might need for ink, which can be very detrimental to them. Or maybe I want to find cards like Ursula the Deceiver, or like those Crabs and Foxes, which are very important. How do you feel those, Zach? What would you keep?
Well, good points. I do think Kit is a very strong card into anything that's not Sapphire because there's a lot of characters and a lot of bodies that are being played turns 1, 2, and 3 that are easy removal targets or bounce targets, I would say, for Kit Cloud Kicker. So, yeah, I like it. Again, you're on the draw, so you're going to want to take back tempo, and that's a very important card to do that. So, let's see our new 5 cards.
All right, all right. Let's see. We're gonna mulligan 5, and we have 5 more cards coming in. We have a 1 cost improvise. So on turn 1, you can just play this card if you want to draw a new card. We do have a Flynn Rider or a Gogo Tamago for turn 2. Turn 3, we kept our Kit, which can let us go there, and we drew a Genie anyways. So on turn 4, we can play this Genie. If we would have kept the other Genie, we would have had, I think, two uninkables, 4 cost cards in our hand, and that's not really something I want to see. So that's another reason why I tend to always put back high cost uninkables. And in this deck, your highest cost character is going to be the Ursula, but she's a shift character. Before that, it's the 5 cost Elsa. So you don't really play too many high cost characters. So Genie does feel like a high cost uninkable in this deck. But I like this. I like this hand. It could go either way. I feel like with this hand, I really would like to see Crab and Fox. Though unfortunately, we did not see any of those in our opening mulligan. But we do have what 2 to 3 draws before we get there because we draw for turn, draw on turn 2. Hopefully, we can draw into a Fox or Crab if going second against certain matchups, right?
Yeah, I think those are very good points. Again, you're not having a one drop on think this deck wants to do, but you can still fight back for the board. You might be able to even cheese some victories later in the game with your Go-Go Tamagos, gaining that additional lore too. So never forget that point of the interest.
Yeah, kind of crazy. We play 12 one-drops in this Amethyst Emerald deck, and we didn't see a single one by putting back 5 cards. Maybe we did get punished. Maybe we do put back the Cloud Kicker anyways, right? But I don't know. James, if you're watching this video, I'd like to know, and you guys in the comments below, please let us know what you guys would do with your mulligan strategy playing Emerald Amethyst. Let us know if there's any decisions that we made that you think might be a little bit different in your opinion. We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. But that's going to be all for our Meta Watch Mondays video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Congrats to all these players for doing well at their local meta tournaments. All in all, it feels like Amber Steel, Emerald Steel, and Emerald Amethyst are some of the top decks, followed by, I would say, Blurple and Ruby Sapphire. Ruby Sapphire is a very strong deck in the meta. I just feel like a lot of players don't want to play a deck that doesn't use any new cards from the set. So understandably, I feel like we're seeing less and less Ruby Sapphire in our local tournaments. You know what I didn't really see this weekend though? Churnadog. Not too many yellow green Churnadog decks. There was like one or two in some of these big tournaments, so they were topping, but it just wasn't really there like super popular like some of these other color combinations that Zach and I had seen. So we just didn't put it in this video. But remember, guys, if you do well at your local game store tournaments, join our Discord with the link in the description below. Drop your deck list information, or even if you guys just want to talk about Lorcana, we're active in our Discord too. So feel free to join down below. Zach, anything we got to say before we call it a day here at the Lorcana Goons channel?
Thank you so much, my goons, for staying till the very end of this video. We really appreciate all the support and everything you guys do for us. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. And to sign us all off, stay tuned to Lorcana Goons, and
We'll see you goons next time.